So the Border Collie, I'll just bring Joe back here a little bit, Joe. The Border Collie gets the sheep to move just with that stare. That send a message to these sheep that he's the boss and they just move away. Okay, so it's just that stare. The fourth and the main reason we use these dogs, you can see now that I'm a little bit further away, if I go up here beside these sheep, Joe will be a lot happier. Okay. You can see all he wants to do is chase these sheep. Border Collie's instinct is to be a herding dog. Okay, and what I mean by that, stay there, stay there, stay there. That'll do, that'll do. You can see he's not happy. That'll do, Joe. And I'll explain why in a second. That'll do, Joe. Stay there. That'll do, Joe. Stay there. Stay there. When I asked Joe to go to his right here at the very start, even though that'll do, stay there. Stay there, that'll do. That'll do, stay there. Even though the sheep were directly down the field in front of us, he didn't run down the field and run through the middle of the sheep. He went around them in a very wide arc, ended up being on the other side of them, and started to send them in my direction. When I stopped making any sounds at Joe down the field, again he went round them and he sent them in my direction. And you can see he's in no way happy because these sheep are not right beside him. All he ever wants to do is get to the other side of the sheep and send them towards me. Okay, so I'm going to move these two sheep back with the others now, and we'll start moving around. I'm going to start walking around, and you'll notice that there's a relationship between where I am, where the sheep are, and what he wants to do. All he ever wants to do is get to the other side of the sheep, and he's not happy until he's there and until the sheep are as close to my feet as he can possibly get them. Okay, that'll do, Joe. Wait. Stand there. Stand. Wait. Stand. Stand. Walk. Stand. Stand. My name is Martin Fili, and I'll start off by explaining a little bit about why you're here in case you don't know. I'm going to start off just by, a lot of you are travelling around Ireland and staying in Ireland for a little while, so I'm going to start off just by explaining a little bit about what you're looking at all around you here, just to give you a feel for this area of Ireland. And then I'm going to work my way back to this little field in front of you here, and you can see some sheep down here in front of us to your right, and they're having a lovely, quiet, peaceful morning. We're going to change all that. And with the help of those sheep, I'm going to try and give you an insight into life around this area of Ireland. I'm going to try and show you the jobs we do every day, why we do them, a little bit about our lives. And my main hope and my main aim is that by the time you leave me here this morning, you will hopefully have a different idea about life around here, but even more so, hopefully you will look at this area of Ireland in a completely different way. Okay, so the mountains across in front of you are in County Donegal. The highest part, a lot of you are visiting later today, is Slieve League. So the highest part of those mountains, Slieve League over there, is just over 601 meters tall. They're some of the highest sea cliffs in Europe. Okay, and that's a whole range of the Donegal mountains across in front of you. So that's the most northerly county along this coast. This side of the mountains is the Atlantic Ocean, and as you keep coming closer to home, you come to a line of sand dunes down here underneath us that run all the way across in front of you from left to right. And I know those line of sand dunes don't look like much to any of you, but they've become very famous here in Ireland over the last 3 or 4 years now at this stage. Have you all heard of the Spanish Armada? I always smile when I ask that question because I know that most of you are going to nod. And some of you, the way you nodded there, you're like me, I'd say. When I was at school, every time I heard about the Spanish Armada, I nodded, like some of you did. I had no interest in it, but anyway, I won't go into the whole history of the Spanish Armada, but just to let you know, 3 of those Spanish Armada ships ran aground just on the other side of these sand dunes back in 1588. They had never been touched, never been disturbed until about 4 years ago when they started to wash in here on this little beach. 428 years after they sank. Okay. One day here we had huge pieces of timbers wash in on the beach, and that's not an uncommon thing along the Atlantic Ocean. Nobody really asked any questions. But when the round stone cannonballs started washing in, people really began to wonder what was going on out there. So local divers were asked to go out to the wrecks, and they found the wrecks of the 3 ships that had been completely invisible under the seabed were back sitting on top of it again in almost the same condition they had gone down all that time earlier. Okay, and if any of you have any interest in the Spanish Armada, they took video footage as they went out there. So if you look up, the local little village is called Grange. If you look up Grange Armada, that footage will come up there of the divers going out to the wrecks and carrying in 9 of the huge cannons, the cannon wheels that carried them. They carried in any of the artifacts they could find, just out of fear of them being washed out to sea. Okay, and I'm not telling you all of that because of the Armada or because of the history, but it's to help me explain how things around here have changed over the last few years. This area of Ireland never had severe storms. I in my lifetime had never heard the word hurricane mentioned here until about 4 years ago. And all of the storms we got here all came in from the ocean. So they came from the north, the northwest or the west. They were never severe. But over the last 4 years everything has changed, and most of the wind and the storms we have been getting are coming from the east or the south or the southeast, and it's just been storm after storm after storm. The winter gone by was okay, but the previous one we had 3 or 4 named hurricanes come through here, and it started to disturb the seabed out there that it hadn't touched in all of that time. Okay, so everything has changed. So that in itself will explain why some of you were all wrapped up this morning and I'm out in a t-shirt and sweating already and didn't do anything at all. This really is summer here. So this arc of brown then that comes in here in front of us is a tidal strand. So this fills up every day, twice a day, with water here in front of us, and as you can see it's completely clear of water. Okay. On your right hand side, up in the distance, is a mountain called Ben Bulben. And Ben Bulben is Ireland's only tabletop mountain, meaning it's flat on top. It's 526 metres from the base to the top of it, and as you can see it's very steep up there at the front and the sides. We can't climb it from the angles you're looking at here, but our animals do. Our sheep go right into the rocks at the top. They live on the flat area on top of the mountain, and they live up there for about 42 or 43 weeks of every year. Okay, so that's the first main difference with us here. We work from tiny little fields like you see here in front of you. This is around 3 acres, to mountains like Ben Bulben up there that just go to thousands and thousands of acres. Once you get to the top of it, you can travel to all the counties around just on the mountain tops. Okay, the second main difference you may already have noticed, or if you haven't, hopefully you will now. Up in this corner of Ireland, this west and northwest coast, you won't see lots of big green fields or huge big farms. You'll see little fields like this, small little patches, and all of our little fields, most of them never connect to a field next to it. Okay, our farms here are very different. At a time, everything you can see here all around you had no hedges or fences. This would have been one huge farm owned by one person, and our ancestors would have worked for that landowner on that huge farm. Okay, their return for that work was just a shelter to live in and some food so they could survive. But as power in Ireland changed, the land was eventually taken from those huge landowners and given to the families that had been working on it. But it was split up and given in a very unusual way, especially along this coast of Ireland. So here, my ancestors were given these 2 little fields you see here in front of you. The one straight across the road with the sheep in it running down to the sand, and straight across the road you've just come in from. One long little narrow stripe. Then a neighbour was given the next stripe, another neighbour the next stripe, and so on until eventually we have another stripe. So instead of our farm being in one place all around us here, it's in 20 different places in about a 5 kilometre radius of us. It's all spread out. and the mountain was split up the exact same way. We own a stripe of the mountain from the bottom right up to the top. And if you're close enough to the mountains, you'll see the remains of the old walls that our ancestors would have built right up to the top of the mountain, trying to keep their animals apart from everybody else's. Of course, the animals had completely the opposite idea, knocking those walls down. And eventually everyone agreed just to leave them down and call it common ground. Okay. So today there are about 35,000 sheep farms in Ireland. This time of the year, including all the lambs you see, there's somewhere between 10 and 11 million sheep. Okay. And most of them, between 10 and 11 million. Okay. More than the population. You're twice as likely to meet a sheep as a person in Ireland. Okay. Most of those sheep live up along this west and northwest coast. How many of you here are in school? Have we a few that go to school? Okay. Perfect. Well, you can tell the students this when you go back to school. Okay. My grandfather's sheep always grazed up on top of Ben Bulben. That's where they were always found. My dad, when he was young, cycled to the base of the mountain up there every day, climbed all of the mountain to check on the sheep, climbed back down the mountain, cycled back home, and when he was young, did that every day before going to school.
Wow.
Okay. Every day before school. They were at the base of the mountain every morning when it was getting bright. Okay, they had to be there. They climbed all the mountain as quick as they could to check the sheep, came home and went to school. And the word collie came from the old Scotch Gaelic language and meant useful. Useful. So that's where they got their name. You can see he was my best friend, jumping up on me when he came out, and all his attention was on me until he saw sheep. Okay, and now all he wants to do is go and get these sheep. And that's the way it'll be from now on. Joe, that'll do. All these dogs want to do is chase sheep. Okay, Joe, that'll do. Joe. So Joe knows right from left by different sounds, as I said. So we'll go through the different sounds first of all. So we'll ask Joe to go and get these sheep. Okay, Joe. Okay, so we'll ask Joe to go to his right first of all. So the sound for Joe's right.
Wow.
The next sound will be me asking Joe to slow down.
О, видите, дружненько. Вау.
Means to come towards the sheep.
Подойди к овцам. Ты подойди к овцам,
And
говорит.
if I want Joe to go to his left,
Налево.
Да ладно.
Он направо пойдет. Вау.
to slow down.
Вау.
Just to go towards the sheep. So I want him to hurry up a little bit. So to his right again. To slow down. To his left.
Вау.
To slow down. And when I stop making any sounds at Joe, even though I have my back turned to him, I know he's going to go to the other side of those sheep and he'll start to send them up here towards us. Okay? And that's what he's doing.
Вау.
Go.
Ошибся мувень. Красавца.
Then, okay, so first of all we'll try and explain a little bit about how and why this works. So straight away, if you look behind you to your right in that little field, there's some sheep there. Okay, you see the sheep directly in front of you in the field across the road. Stand there, Joe. Stand there, the dog. They will make a little bit of contact with them. They might give their heel a little nip, maybe the end of their tail, or maybe even the fatty part of the sheep's mouth. They'll always get the sheep to move, but they'll never injure. Okay. and they don't work by barking. So if we had a dog that just barked at the sheep would pay no attention after a little while, and they just wouldn't move. So the Border Collie, I'll just bring Joe back here a little bit, Joe, come here. The Border Collie gets the sheep to move just with that stare. We never know when the dogs are going to want to stop this. They do it out of complete enjoyment, and when they stop enjoying what they do, they just stop doing it. But you see, every time I leave Joe alone, all he ever wants to do is get straight back to work, okay? Or if he has any other business to do along the way, okay? But he is just completely intent on these sheep all the time. Okay, that'll do, Joe. That'll do, Joe. Please don't tell anybody else I told you this, no matter where you visit in Ireland. But these are the only workaholics that you're going to see here. Okay? There aren't any others. They just love to work all day long, and when the day comes that they stop that, they'll just stop. Even with Joe, we don't know. That could be tomorrow, it could be next week, it could be next year. We don't know. Okay? So when the dogs are young, we could leave them alone and they'll bring sheep directly to us. But on mountains, that could mean bringing the sheep over steep cliffs or across deep rivers. So we teach the dogs left from right so that we can guide the sheep where we want them to go. So if we're gathering sheep on top of the mountains, we can guide them away to paths that are less steep. Or down here, if I wanted to move these sheep from here to the field across the road, I could go onto the road to make sure there's no traffic coming.